its recording is getting on. And there are people, many are joining. Just I will admit them. Yeah. Yes. Good evening, one and all. COVID 19
Good evening.
that has brought us together today has caused major disruptions the world over. The ongoing pandemic is already affecting many aspects of our daily life and will undoubtedly force rearrangements on our globalized society. As many are saying, this is a before and after moment. In the bid to combat this spread of novel COVID-19 virus, government across the world have been scrambling to engage in mass testing, quarantines, and contact tracing, and eventual shutdowns. The sudden step of lockdown in our own country has really created a drastic impact all over India. While this measure was necessary and prudent, though it stranded thousands of suddenly out of work migrant workers and placed marginalized communities further at risk. Over the years, collectively, NGOs have made an important contribution to the humanity. Amid the massive disruption caused by the pandemic, local non-governmental organizations have sprung into action to fill in the gaps of communication and delivery of essential items to the undeserved communities. On these grounds, today our session is going to be on COVID-19 and role of NGOs. We have two unassuming heroes with us. I will refer in that way only. Representing two great NGOs working for the needy. One is Aware India and another one is Trust for Youth Child Leadership. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Shiva Madhyaragan, founder Trust for Youth Child Leadership, and Mr. Sandhyan, founder Aware India. Welcome you both. Welcome Shiva. Welcome Sandhyan sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
At the outset, first let me ask Mr. Sandhyan to brief about the activities of Aware India in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. Before going to the queries and discussions about the challenges that NGOs are facing, I just wanted to know there are a lot of activities your NGOs were focusing before. That people will know if they go and search about your search in your website. But now I wanted to know in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, what is that your NGO is doing for the people in order to overcome and also to confront the situation. Sandhyan sir, please.
So it's great to be a part of this session on briefing the activities that we do and explaining the role of NGOs in crisis situation like this. So when it comes to Chennai, it's been we are NGOs are got to used to it for the last 5 years with disasters coming every year. So we have been prepared, we have been equipped better to handle situations. On that note, as an organization which is really working on gender and safety aspects, working with schools, colleges, and communities, this COVID-19 has let us understood the ground reality of people from marginalized communities and vulnerable families that were going through severe damages, both financially, economically, and socially, all of such destruction. So we are doing a community development activity for almost 5 years in a community called Chemanjeri. Most of VITians serve there. Uh, so, so when this COVID-19 lockdown, everything came into existence, we just started with assessing the local needs, local sufferings, local demands that was uh, pertaining in the communities that we were actually working, especially Chennai. So we work with children and their families over there. During the March end, we were just assessing the situation and how the families are coping up this particular lockdown period. How they are coping it financially with the leftovers of their food supplies and stocks being over there. We were just closely following with our children over there. So we regularly call them and just check with them what their parents are doing and giving them, providing them essential foods, all of that. And it was in the first week of April that we got to know that their stocks got over. So that when we started, like this is the right time that we need to pitch in to support the families like daily wage workers, senior citizens, transgenders, physically challenged people, single parent kids. We assessed families based on these categories, and we just checked with them like how long their stocks would left over. So for few families, they would be able to sustain for a week period of time. So we prioritize them in the second list. For few families, it would be lasting just within a day or two. So we prioritize them to the top, and we were serving them, providing them enough groceries and ration kits. So we were actually waiting for the first in the first week of April for the government to supply the dry rations which they have promised. But till 7th of April, they weren't given enough food supplies. And there were non-ration card holders as well. And especially there were migrant workers who were residing in communities like Chamanjeri, all of those OMR areas. So that's when we realized that this is the need that people are suffering right now, just because they can't step out of their homes to fetch in any other jobs, which were actually they were forced to step out and do some menial jobs to cover their financial needs. So that's when we actually thought that this is something that we need to take it up, because this is something that we haven't done earlier. Earlier in the times of Gaja and other areas, we just concentrated on the educational supply needs like books, stationery, all of which. But providing grocery set is something that we have done in Chennai floods, because that's the need which was across the city, where we had the chance of venturing out ourselves as volunteers. We also had that safety and other things to go out and get materials and provide them. But this is the situation where volunteers also not advised to step out of their home, get materials and provide them to the needy. So this is quite challenging in doing it as a voluntary level as well. So understanding all these things and not compromising someone to let like die out of hunger than the coronavirus, we had this decision of taking it up and providing them enough groceries. So we initially started with Chemanjeri and supplied over Perambakam slum community activities, slum clearance, housing boards, setups. Then as the need goes on high, we had to venture out to some other communities which are not accessed by several other NGOs. So there were challenges for every other NGO to go and supply, provide them enough kits. So we analyzed through different areas, different communities which are in the outskirts of Chennai, which is untouched, which is unreached at this crisis period. So we got requests from different other NGOs who are working on the ground level, where we got requests, where we had raised funds, and then we were able to fulfill in the needs like Kelambakam areas, Tirupur, Tiruvallur, Kanchipuram areas, all of which. So as of COVID-19, we were into providing them dry ration kits in the name of Bags of Hope. So that's how the initiative was made. And now we are stepping into the rehabilitation phase, where we are providing them uh, hygiene kits for girls and women in the communities, where menstrual hygiene is something that is need to be of this period. Slowly, we would be getting into that psychosocial support and school support systems once this lockdown gets structured better, so that we would be addressing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. And now it's to Shiva. Shiva, TYCL basically started from Pondicherry, but still has reached to a level of an international chapter till USA. Now, from USA, you are there to represent it, and you tell me what is going on, how you were able to support in this pandemic situation.
Yep. And first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to connect with you all and discuss about this most serious issues which the entire globe is facing. This pandemic has affected, as of course, everybody knows that US also is equally, not equally, like even much more than any other country we are suffering. And in my heart is towards India as well as in the US. Like I'm playing between both the countries, and the Trust for Youth and Child Leadership has a Indian version, and back in Pondicherry and Tamil Nadu, and here in New York. So we are in New York. We are focusing more on mental health support and supporting the vulnerable young population, particularly LGBTQ and African American and Asian youth here. And in India, it's focusing on more of vulnerable communities like Dalit population and Adivasis and Adian communities, and LGBTQ youth. So that's like pretty much our priority back in India and the US. And what we did in the moment on 22nd of January, the moment we know that like it's getting once the WHO was announced as a pandemic, it's a global pandemic. We developed in-house. We developed our own website. It's called overcomecovid19.in. The website has it's built by the local youth back in Pondicherry. So we created a like a comprehensive knowledge package initially, how to get more facts about COVID-19 first, because there is like a lot of misinformation was spreading, and then fake news and disinformation. It's quite a lot of issues going on. Then we thought like we need to be a platform where we can offer a much more facts and figures about the COVID-19 and preventive steps for the people in a bilingual. Initially, we started with Tamil, and then we converted into English, so that like in Tamil and English, and then like we can add any other languages. And also we kept as open, anybody can translate to any other the local languages which people would like to do it. And now it's also going to the other languages. People are adopting for French and other UN languages. And in addition to the website, it's only in addition to the website, it's a website is offering anonymous knowledge. Then we start like a helpline, the COVID-19 helpline, which people can approach from anywhere in India and take the support. And along the side, we also map the entire service offered by the government and as well as the non-government organization. So people really wanted support, and then looking for a support, and then they have no information disseminated elsewhere where to go and whom to approach. But almost there is a digital divide, and certain people, almost like a 40% of the Indian population, do not have access to the internet or digital tools, either like you take a mobile phone or computer or any other digital devices, which 40% doesn't have, but other 60% do have the technology, and we can have access. And but at the same time, almost 89% of the Indian population are having a mobile phone. So we launched the COVID-19 helpline to reach that population, and then like whoever can access that website and internet sources, they can access the website. And we did like a two element. One is like preparing our own team virtually. We can't go out and work, but we need to find a new way of working, that we need to adapt to a new normal. So that's how we figure out that like the Google Hangout works much more efficiently. We are part of the Google for Nonprofit. So it's as an NGO, you can connect with this is like a time where you can use all kind of technological advancements as part of the when you need to maintain a physical distance, and only way is like you can connect through the technology. So we use this technology. I think we have used this technology much efficiently to do like a parallel activities. One is like how our team can be inducted with the facts and figures if they're asking. And the second is offering a mental health support for everyone, particularly young people and their families. And the third is like delivering the essential needs, whether it may be like groceries for the vulnerable families, and the hygiene kit, and the mental health support. Like that even like if it is the physically it's required, maybe we'll figure out like who is available in the neighborhood itself, and mapping and matchmaking the local youth and the vulnerable communities. That's the uniqueness of this technology helped us in connecting and doing the matchmaking with the young people and vulnerable communities. And over a period, like on the other side, we are also organizing a panel discussions with the experts to identify the emerging needs and challenges, and gaps in the sector so that we can make recommendations to the government, the central as well as the state. And also we have an advantage of disseminating this information at the UN. So we keep we've been doing like regularly. I think we have done 8 different webinars and panel discussions online to collect the facts and figures about the challenges and hopes the people are the challenges people are having, and then the kind of positive hopes they're holding. So where we can design a new programs for the vulnerable population and move forward with that, as well as like advocate with the national as well as regional and international bureaucrats, so that there will be enough resources to overcome these challenges in the future. I think that's like a 3 level of action. One is at a grassroots level where we can support, and then second at a national and international level, and you keep like changing the policies at the global level. I think this is pretty much we have been doing, and we are doing
Yeah.
a need assessment with the communities. Once the need assessment over, then we'll be like starting our rehabilitation work.
Fine. Thank you, Shiva. Yes, I was also following all your webinars and other panel discussions which we are conducting then and there. And I hope to from in today's program also you can get some information, the questions which students are going to post, that will also add with respect to the information that you have collected in order to represent to UN or represent to the government, so that they'll come out with some proper designing framework for overcoming this pandemic situation. Now, I would go for a different question to you, to both of you. I first I can ask maybe Sandhyan sir to answer, and then I will move to Shiva. Yeah, managing your NGO in this time of COVID-19, whether you're able to run or manage your NGO. Because yes, of course, you are trying to do a lot of work. That's different. But how you try to first of all manage yourself to manage the other expectations of the community?
So managing NGO even in non-crisis period is also a tough job, because working on issues and working on issues that people are inclined only at the moment of spur, or else when it's getting more personal, only then they support causes something which are more sensitive towards it. So, but especially in COVID-19 part. So for the first 2 weeks, it was quite challenge, because we are also a common people in understanding what this could lead to and what kind of damages it could create, and what are the challenges that common people, everyone faces through it, and how far we could spread our works amidst of this particular challenge that everyone is going through. So everyone is going through in different levels, like financially, emotionally, physically, all of it. So for the first 2 weeks, it was basically to understand the real impact of what this COVID-19 could lead to. So assessing different other countries, what were the problems that was led when it was severely impacting in the countries in Jan and February, what are all the possible problems that could lead to. So we were assessing different problems, like there were more number of domestic violence cases, which are all the causes that we are keenly working on, and child sexual abuse cases, and mental health issues. So these are all the issues that we were anticipating in the first 2 weeks, and we were clearly promoting awareness over the digital media, like social media forums. We were spreading hotline numbers, we were spreading helpline numbers, we were spreading how to cope up anxiety in the times of COVID, how children can cope up, how parents can cope up, how working professionals can cope up. So it's all mixed of people emotions to be isolated, to be locked within one single room, and everyone has to reflect within their families. So that was the challenge that was happening for us. So all our volunteers and our team were keenly working on to spread the positivity amidst of this corona. Like rather spreading fake news, rather spreading fear or panic among people about this virus spread, we wanted to spread hope among the people. Like this is something that we all can overcome. So we were getting data on how India successfully fought back several other virus pandemics and epidemics, and how we could overcome this as well. So these were all the clear plans that we had in the initial days. But over a period of time, when we understood that is the demand is something totally different, like people are suffering in different forms, we had to pitch in to support that. And especially when we see our own communities going through severe impacts of this thing, that's when we pitched it. But this is not just with Chemanjeri or Perumbakam or else Kanaginagar. So this is across everywhere. So we have to shift our focus in uh, addressing the needs and spreading that positivity among every other people. So our strategy has been changed over that. But running an NGO uh, managing the volunteers themselves, we like our volunteers also had to go through several other issues, like they had their regular work schedule, work from home options. Apart from that, they had to share some other being at home. They had to go through whatever emotional things that were happening within the families. They had to go through that. So everyone were going through different problems. So we were concentrating on coping up our own volunteers issues as well in the first 1 month. So it was a mix of, so it was a clear learning for all of us how to handle pandemic, something like that. So now better, we are better equipped to handle such things whenever it's coming in the future. But for the first 1 month, it was quite challenging for us to understand what would be the repercussions and consequences that this particular issue is going to end up with. So hopefully we have learned a positive learning, but we wish no pandemic should be coming up in the near future. But we are uh, better equipped to understand people mindset and pitching to support the real needs of them.
Yeah. This is also something like a disaster preparedness. It has
Yeah.
become now. We are now little. We have developed our preparedness towards some pandemic issues. Yeah, and one, yes, of course, you explain me about how to run and manage your NGO in this situation. But little more add on to it financially. That area you have not haven't covered emotionally with respect to the volunteers is of course your answer satisfied, but on the other side financially how you are able to run and manage your NGO in this pandemic situation.
So for an NGO to run and to impact financially, all our regular programs have been stopped because we don't uh, reach out to schools, college to do our programs because it was halted for all these 2 months. So we had several other programs to do it online, which doesn't incur much cost. At the same time, we had another program to support the groceries need, for which we had a separate fundraiser. So those fundraising part was taken care, where people have generously supported, by which we were able to meet the grocery needs of disadvantaged families. But for our own staff, we had to cut down our own staff for 2 months, like April and May, and we weren't anticipating like how long the lockdown would be going through. So we took the decision in the April end, saying that for the next 1 month we would be asked to take a break. If situation persists, then if the situation becomes normal, we would be able to take you back in the June period. They are still continuing to volunteer with us, and they are contributing to the works that we are doing there. So as it's like globally, it's affecting everyone's job, everyone's financial demand. As NGO also, we are also going through the same. But we weren't incurring much of our programs operational cost because we weren't doing much of the programs that we physically do it and before this pandemic. So everything
Thank
being
you.
conceptualized
Yeah,
virtually.
fine. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, Shiva, now can I hear from how Trust for Child your leadership is managing or able to run your NGO?
One is like I think we are very much able to manage our own organizations without much trouble because we are a youth-led organization. It is like I think I'm the eldest one in the organization, it seems, and all others are like below 30. and our executive director, our associate director, everybody is below 30. So connecting the entire team members and working from home as a non-profit organization wasn't a really challenge for us because we are all connected through technology and most of our team members are tech savvies. So connect one is like a connecting and keeping that human resource active and keeping them even more productive during this pandemic situation wasn't really trouble for us. And because one is the young people and the tech savvy, so we are like very much ready to handle the situation. And the second, with regard to the financial stability, we one of the program management structure which we built is each one have our own responsibilities. I have our own fundraising team which been raising the uh, resources for the organization operations, and also uh, we have our own clear strategic plan which allows us to run for like organization until 2021. So we have enough resources to manage the organization until 2021. Then and for the emergency resources, we did like a recurring fundraising activities, particularly focusing on the specific community. It's like one of the another advantage with the TUACL is it's evidence-based practices. So if you are reaching out to the community and which community we are looking for, and then particularly whom we are seeking support, and how we are going to support them, and how this is going to create an impact in their life. So we have a like, very clear structure. If anybody is going to pitch to anyone, it's easy. And so that's why when I say like it's an evidence-based practice, and that's something is very important as an organization. TYCL is also one is like keeping the human resources and then financial resources, and keeping this community resources. The locally we have like a one is like we have like a community resource in a multiple layers. One, I'm seeing the community youth itself. They are the huge support with which when we are having this pandemic situation, and we when our own staff team are like the volunteers or fellows which can't reach to them, but the local community young people and the local community resources, they said you don't need to come, let us know, like we'll go and pick it up and then we'll do it everything. So the community itself has like a huge resources which we were able to tap and make use of that resources very effectively, and believe in the people and believe in the community members. They are like a biggest asset, and which NGO need to tap their fullest potential to overcome the COVID challenges for the organization as well as for themselves. So and we didn't particularly we didn't cut off any one of our team members salary, or it doesn't require because they've been working, and we have enough resources to manage. And but I know that like a youth-led organization and volunteer-led organizations must be facing like a huge financial crisis because of the CSR funding model is going to be changed, and the international grant approach is going to be changed. It's already changed a lot because South India is not attracting any of the funding support from the international agencies or either UN agencies, and and also the local supporters are like much more like they, if somebody's like used to support, now they'll be like, okay, like I have to support my own like laborers. If they're running an industry, small scale or medium scale industries, they would like to support their own laborers or their own like mates and the family members and who are suffering. So it's very challenging for the other organization. But I would say if you have a clear strategic plan and if you have like a surplus emergency resource support, one of the major thing is we did is like we reserved uh, something around like a few lakhs, which initially we put in the initial stage to start our relief work. We are normally like NGOs will wait for someone to support to start it. So as a youth-led organization, we had the struggle in the past. So when we are facing this kind of like maybe like a flood or like cyclones, uh, when we are like a small disasters, that like really prepared us well to how to respond to the disaster and how we can prepare the young people on this kind of situation. So I think that's how we managed quite well. And now we are preparing for the rehabilitation phase, again creating much more evidences, scientific evidences from the community, so that like we can reach out to the much more larger audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you. You answered to my next question also about the youth engagement in this crisis management. So you've added to that answer, to the question. Thanks a lot. But I wanted to ask you another question. I hope now Sandhyan can answer, Shiva can take a break and come back to the
Yeah,
same
you can
question.
go ahead.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
go ahead. Like, you can,
No problem. Both of you, I need the answer because both of you deal with the people. Now, tell me the response from the people side. Of course, in the very normal situation, making the people to accept what the NGOs are coming with. For example, awareness program, training program, whatever it is a challenging task to make the people to accept. But when it comes to a pandemic, such kind of situation, especially COVID, where physical distancing has been given more important criteria. So, how on the other side there is the reaction of the people, the response of the people when you go to support them?
So as I said, for every class of people, like be it working professionals or else people in the marginalized community, for everyone common across all the sectors, for the first weeks, it was uh, everyone was trying to understand what this could lead to. So that was the phase. That's when nobody is ready to listen to any of the NGOs work, like be it awareness or be it the awareness on COVID-19 itself. They just wanted to carry through what the government says, what the news media says, and how they could be prepared to overcome the situation. That was the time that everyone is trying to invest in. Uh, so in those periods, we wouldn't be able to talk about something about parenting, something on domestic violence, something on gender equality. So whatever NGOs that is main propaganda, they wouldn't be able to share those information. So understanding the real need and understanding the real issue that people are going through. So we add the strategy planning to shift the focus towards that. So in the second week and third week, it was slowly popping up. Like slowly, the support has been like people are ready to listen to us, and they were keenly watching the space. Like especially in the third and fourth week, everyone going through several issues over mental health, anxiety, panic attacks, trauma, all of which, especially secluded within the home space, and several other issues which was pertaining within home space. So they were and every mode of communication and everything interactions turned to be digital, like over virtual, even their office work or else even college work, everything changed into this digital setup, gadget over the phone or else over laptop. So they try to invest their time, spend their time, quality time with this digital era. So NGOs have strategized their working model as well to venture to reach out to homes through this model, like reaching out to professionals, reaching out to mental health advocates, reaching out to different awareness spreading people like talk session, inspiring session, or else book talk sessions, movies, talking about movies. All of this have changed to this digital medium. So completely it was engaging for everyone to understand. But what we really don't understand or what we really don't uh, ignore is the people who can't access the digital media. They are the one who have been ignored, who have been neglected in this complete transformation that we are going through. So they are the one who couldn't continue their jobs, who couldn't continue their college studies or any other work that they are regularly doing. They couldn't cope up their mental health issues. They couldn't get genuine awareness. So these are all the challenges that they had to cope. So it was a mix of where we concentrate few people who have that access, who could afford that, but there were several millions of people who couldn't afford that. So we hadn't led any conversations. We haven't had any dialogues with them because of this COVID. Otherwise, people would have been stepped into their communities. They would have reached out to their homes, gathered them, and they would have talked to them. Us, this is something the virus could contract. All of this other issues are going through it. There are several other challenges where we had to neglect that particular group. So even in the distribution mechanisms that we were doing, we had to follow all those safety measures like social distancing, sanitizing ourselves, giving them, not gathering them in one particular location. We had to reach their doors, and we need to deliver the kits. So that's how it was working. Now the time has been changed. From last week, there were social gatherings organized by the corporation as well, like where they are organizing sessions, awareness sessions, especially last month when they had this migrant workers to be taken care under shelter homes. They were given yoga sessions. They were given sessions to cope with their mental health sessions. They had fun movie loving sessions, sports activities, all of which were happening. So, because this is something new to all of us, even the administrator, even the government. So, they have to take time to understand what this could lead to and what all different countries and how they had overcome. Understanding and assessing all those situations, they took a month of time to actually pitch in all those areas. So, now NGOs have also stepped in to do this physical sessions where they are without compromising the social distancing and other safety measures. They're also doing awareness programs in local communities for different sets of people. That's something which is ongoing, but it would take few more weeks, or I would say mostly by August, where regular sessions could happen on field, something of that sort.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yes, Shiva. What is the response for the TYCL volunteers? What are the response the TYCL volunteers got when they went to the field?
I've been hearing like a very, I've been hearing a lot of like my communication is always a virtual. So I've been hearing from my team members that uh, one in terms of like the biggest worry from the community members is the like their livelihood, and it's been affected. And one of the like, and there are like two challenges. One, the life and livelihood of people. So how like there's uncertainty in like how our life is going to look like, and how our like livelihood is going to continue, and that challenge has been not really addressed. So one of the major way like we are like trying to do look at in a much more in a micro level, where like what exactly their life is going to be, and how we can address their livelihood issues. So that life and livelihood component with respect and dignity of those vulnerable communities, without compromising their respect, and how we are going to do it, like it's going to be a new challenge from the organization like us. And as a community, they have like quite a lot of expectations in terms of their livelihood, and they're like no community would like to, oh yeah, somebody will come and then keep feed us, and they don't want to lose their respect and dignity, and they are potentials, like they have something within them, but they couldn't use that because they are like manual laborers. They have like a very strong abilities to make their own resources for their living, which has been questioned now. And because the term we use as like okay, you need to maintain we've been like still using the social distancing. I won't use that word for any reason. It's a physical distancing and social solidarity. And so physical distance is like cost them much more issues, like most of the like you might have like seen on like mainstream medias saying that like we are fine with like a dying by corona, like, but we don't want to die by the poverty or extreme starvation has killed the people. And I know that I've been like working on a misinformation and on a research paper which says that so far in India alone 270 people, it's all like a registered, like it's published on the news dailies, in the various news dailies, 270 people have non-virus death in India, which is, one is like a mental health, they committed a suicide, or like the suicide killed them, and second is a starvation. So this is the like of the reality. So for us, what we are getting from the people is either give us livelihood options, may build our livelihood to keep our the economy, the family economy alive, or like liberate us from this situation, then we'll figure out something on our own. So our, like, whatever the support system we have given as a family survival kit, or like that, something comes for like maybe month, that month is gone already. And what's happening now, like there's no job, and none of, and the other thing is the huge digital divide. Other kids are going to the school and then my kid is not going to the school, because they're going, like virtual schooling is happening for the neighborhood kids, and the same schooling is not happening for my kids, because my kids are going to the government school. How we are going to address this digital divide, and what's the role of NGOs in it? Like we've been thinking about like how we are going to create this access to technology and the digital tools to the, like the most vulnerable population who've been suffering that the denied for their education, denied for their livelihood, denied for their health care, and the tracking system, like the healthcare system, like right now, how we are tracking the carriers, which we haven't used any of these methods or technologies to track those people. And those people, that this tracking system, even, like one of the main, even how people can see the Rayapuram is one of the highest uh, infected area in the Chennai, um, Chennai municipality, or like Chennai, whatever you call that, corporation.
Corporation.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the Chennai corporation is, Rayapuram is like one of the high density area which we failed to trace the contact because of the digital divide. That's like we are getting, like, we know that there's a strong digital divide which we've been facing, and who can address that issue? Like it's primarily, one is like, of course, the government is a primary responsible, but, and also like I've been seeing that like our government or even NGOs are not invested much resource on innovation in addressing the pandemic like this. But we have like almost 40% of the young populations are young, and then we have like highest number of engineers in this world. But we haven't used their potentials to create something which can even address the most pressing issues during the pandemic situation. I think the majorly, like I'm seeing the two major things. If anyone, life and livelihood of people and the digital divide.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Shiva. Yes, you have thrown a light, or you have created a great insight among the people to think on this. Yes, of course. This is the time most of us are thinking about this COVID-19 pandemic, spread of infections on the one side. On the other side, as you said, there is a digital learning to a kind of a section of society which is afford and which are all able to access it. And on the other side, there is a great digital divide. Sorry, there is some disturbance, I hope. Is it clear? Yeah. Yeah, so there is a digital divide, and we have to address. We cannot say post COVID, even at the time of COVID, because COVID-19 is going on. Now we need to address
There
what
is
is
no
happening now.
post-COVID.
Yeah.
This is only post-lockdown, and the
Yes.
COVID is going to be with us, and we have to. There's a new normal. We have to live with COVID. That's like a global recommendations. Even WHO has said very clearly, COVID is going to be part of our life. We need
Yes.
to learn how to live with it.
Yes, yes. So in this situation, so we need to learn, as we were referring also, that the new normal, this new normal is going to set to whom? So how we are going to reach to all the people? Okay, how we are going to reach, as you said, with respect to the education, with respect to job opportunities, there are a lot of challenges which is there in front of us. Not only I'll say post lockdown, even at the time of lockdown, because parallelly from June 1st onwards, the online classes are going to be initiated. That is what UGC has given. But as you said, what about the people who are not having the accessibility and affordability to it? So that is a big question that's there in front of us. And before going to the other aspects, there is one thing that comes to my mind now. Recently, government, I hope you would have also come across the situation. In between, they have passed the GO that NGOs need not support the government organization will be supporting the needy. Then after that, there was another GO that yes, NGO support is accepted. In order to kind of restrict the spread of COVID, some GO was passed and then it was also taken off. So what was your response at that time? How was your reaction?
So it is very important to obey the government rules. So we do believe that the government still have a power to uh, uh, maybe regulate the organizations, and the NGOs like are trying to always are trying to fill the gaps between the service gaps between the people and the government. Whenever like the government failed to do, the NGO goes there and then replace the government services with very limited resources. And when government is like, and also it's a civil society initiative. It's not like something comes from somewhere. But if the government is really, when we had this kind of situation, like they say, like government is failed to take a collective action, and there is no proper. It's supposed to be when the pandemic or like an epidemic, there should be a like a collective, comprehensive the action has to be taken. So the government uh, terribly failed to take that collective action. They haven't even mapped the number of organizations working on this pandemic situation, how we can map them, and how we can direct them and then give them like a better resources to reach out to the most vulnerable population. And I think, and the government has realized after the I think High Court verdict. High Court instructed the government that you shouldn't do that. Like a better let them serve with the communities, because you are not going to reach the last mile. And and for us, particularly in we served on the most of the services are virtual and then served with the local volunteers. It didn't really affect us anything because our operations are like much more. It's like almost like underground operations. Nobody knows like how we are like operating, because it's all connecting virtually and then going through the local neighborhood youth who are taking and giving the services through the neighborhood shops. And so we didn't face like much of the challenges, but it's like a policy crisis. It's an administrative crisis. It's a governance crisis which we have faced. Which when we are facing a leadership crisis, governance crisis, and policy crisis, it also affects the NGOs. Ultimately, it affects the bottom of the pyramid. So that's where like we thought like we need to create much more evidences what kind of issues are creating and how the such kind of policy and governance and leadership crisis can be addressed, and we can be the voice of the people. So that's why like we're building much more documents to push the government. Maybe like this we are creating more evidences, because it's not only like pushing the government within the country, we can push the government through the UN missions, so that like there will be the international peers also can push the government and say that, hey, whatever you did, we have enough evidences that whatever you have done and then such policies are not going to support the people. You need to enable the civil society voice, so civil society support to uh, support the more people in the pandemic situation, and you shouldn't like suppress their voices through your policy decisions. That's what like we are trying, and that's my understanding on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiva. Yes, Sandhyan.
So
Oh,
adding
you're there.
to yeah. So adding to
Yeah.
what Shiva said, the government doesn't have a clear vision, or it's in a confused state on how they could promote NGOs work in the time of this. They weren't able, like in terms of manpower, in terms of capacity wise, they doesn't have much of their people to step in the ground to work on it. So they, at one point of time, they were calling NGOs to support, but soon after, they were asking NGOs to stop their work. They were completely banning NGOs to not distribute
Maybe,
foods.
sorry to interrupt, but like there's a, because of the NGOs also has created a challenge with that.
Yeah.
Playing
So
NGOs overlapping the same thing, and they're
yeah,
not
duplication
maintaining,
is always.
and there must be a lot of chaotic situations caused by NGOs also. It's not like that we are like backing up all the NGOs. And
Yeah.
as I know, been in the sector like it's been like 15 years now. There like NGOs, like almost 90% of the NGOs are not really going with the like what I say, like credibility issues, accountability issues, transparency issues, and following the government regulations. And the NGOs used to bribe the governments to get the projects. So such kind of issues are happening. So that may be like a cause the government to like
Yeah.
fluctuate it. On the other side, is the government is terribly failed. Please,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So that was one
Yes.
thing. And apart from that, there were so much of politics across different sectors. There were politics between central government and state government in issuing it. And the local corporation level, we have different political issues that was going through. It's like just because the opposition party shouldn't be giving credits that the ruling party is being supported by the NGO, they doesn't want to take that name in the right, so they doesn't want to spread the work with NGOs as well. So as this particular period, they don't have enough manpower to step on the ground and support the people as much as possible. This is this is the time where they could call for help, but that was the terrible failure that was done in the previous stage. But after so many condemnations from different parties, then they allowed NGOs to work. But there was regulations that were keenly followed by certain NGOs, and there were damages, as Shiva told. There was community spread, which was done by NGO members itself while distributing foods and other things. So there were challenges across, but till today we weren't completely satisfied with the work what government has done and in which way it facilitated the NGOs to operate on grounds. Till now, we are seeing the state of how migrants has been supported in our government setups and how they have been taken care with this lockdown and other issues. So government should devise a plan on how to work with local supportive groups, NGOs, or else any trust-based organization, or else local community residential welfare associations, or anything like that, to collaboratively work on something like that, because this is something for the community. As a community, everyone should stand up for this. So that's the only request that we had from the government. And people side, we need so much of cooperation and understanding, because government has taken immense support, especially country like India, where the population is used to handle. They have done their best to spread the awareness about it. But people have mistook all the information, and they were kind of being lethargic to every response of actions that the government was taking as well. So that's why we have ended up in a situation where we had to live with the virus. So we get to used to live with the virus than to add to reduce the spread of the virus.
Yeah, thank you, Sandhyan sir. Before going on to the audience participants' questions, I have one last question to both of you. How did you ensure the health of your volunteers? Because yes, volunteering is a great service. We do agree, but it is not like a flood or a disaster. COVID-19 is a pandemic. So in this situation, how do you ensure the health of your volunteers? Yes, Sandhyan sir. Then I'll go to Shiva.
Okay, so when we initially planned this works, like initially we were volunteering with the Chennai Corporation and doing this telecounseling support for the quarantine people. So every day we need to go to Ripon building and come back. So they have taken care of food and other things, where they add the semen developing drinks, everything was facilitated much. At homes also we do carry out same measures where we properly use this regulations like hand washing, sanitizing, all of which, and we consume even developing food items like grains, all of that. things. So that was the only thing, and we were more conscious whenever we are stepping out on the ground. Like we are more conscious that we have been roaming around the city and distributing foods and other areas. We should be more careful in not spreading the virus through us. We shouldn't be a carrier to some local community where they have been secluded in one area and they were severely taking care of their own lives. But just because in the terms of being helpful to them, we shouldn't be someone to pass on the virus to them. So those are all some areas where we are more keen, and all our volunteers have tested negative in the test as well. So these are some safety measures that we have clearly followed, given with the instructions from the government and the health department as well.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Shiva, unmute your audio.
Sorry. When I ask about the health, it goes with the mental and physical health. With regard to the physical health, we like none of our volunteers are not required to do any of the testings because it's not really required because of the we haven't seen any of the symptoms are like the asymptoms people like we've been like regularly our WhatsApp group like we've been checking them like hey what's happening with all of you and your families and they keep giving them like checking them with their themselves and then their families. And second is a mental health part which in order to like support them like we've been asking them whether what is exactly happening in their own families, in the volunteers families and our team members families like our fellow families. So we were like able to support like them with some of our volunteers needed support and then on without knowing the other volunteers like we've been supporting on the side to our volunteers. And mental health, we organized every Saturday, 6 to 8 is like happy hour for our volunteers. So we just pass on everything, just talk about us, what's going on with us. And we had our own happy hour to keep our mental health stable and keep continuing the work which we are doing. And the regular appreciation and motivation goes from most of our board members and whatever even like accomplishments uh, even small steps they are taking and then keep appreciating and acknowledging their work and keep them motivated with of course as he said like maintaining the government regulations on the safety measures of mostly we didn't encourage any of our volunteers to step out and go and do it. Identify the local youth in their own community and try to support them and use like phone pay. You use like whatever the mode you need, use. And the other type of support which we did is we have provided like unlimited internet pack to all our volunteers who are working on this project. So they're like they're not like really disconnected from the process. So that's something which we felt like it's important to support them with
Yeah.
additional other supports. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Shiva. Thank you, thank you. Before going to the participants' question, what is the word that you want to give to our participants? Like everybody wants to help, but they don't know how to help, where to help. This is what we all stick on. So, what a word from as a NGO founder, if you what you wanted to kind of a suggestion in this pandemic situation to the participants.
Only one
How
word.
that the word is not a word. Yeah.
One
A
is
piece
like
of information.
okay.
Yeah.
So from my end, I would say you have like a lot of potentials, and you have a lot of skills. You learn so much of theory from your schools, and it's a time to use all your theories into a practice for a social change. You will be a social change agent. You will be a young innovator. You can make a remarkable changes in the society, and this is the right time for you to volunteer. And if you use your skills and potentials, and this is the time to unleash your inner potentials and unlock your inner power and bring your inner talents to the society for to make a positive change in the society. And particularly if you are having a tech background, I would say you can fill that digital divide and the digital gap which we have, and accessible and affordable technology to the most vulnerable and the most marginalized communities. You can do it much better with a better with a better business modeling. So it's not like going to be like you are going to lose or dedicate your entire life for the vulnerable population. I'm the one of the social service provider. You can enterprise it in a much more uh, conscious and ethical way that you can make a difference. And when you're like making enough resources for yourself, and the data gonna speak a lot more than anyone else. But get prepared and start volunteering now.
Thank you, Shiva. Sandhyan, yes, your
Yes.
state
Okay.
piece of information,
Okay.
not a word.
Okay.
Shiva is
So
ensuring our mental health also in
yeah,
between,
yeah.
which is sensitive.
So my advice would be the participants, especially all the students. First, take care of your health, physically, mentally. Take care of your family and the neighborhood communities that you could support at time like this, because you got that access, you got that affordability, and you got that knowledge to touch upon lives. So you could do that change in your local community. So there wouldn't be a necessity for an NGO to go and venture if the government fails, or else if the local support system fails. There would be anyone, like the neighborhood connectivity would always be helpful. Like we should start everything right from our homes. So if we are making this from our homes, then there wouldn't be a necessity for anyone else from the outside to come and step in into support the families. So you could pass on this. And adding to what Shiva told, in your schooling, you would have seen several disasters. How in the last 5 years India has faced through. So you know what all the challenges and what all the sufferings that we all gone through. So when you're investing your time in the education point of view, and especially in the technology, you would come up with so much of innovation and creativity where we could handle so many things in handling crisis like this. And as India is considered like 40% of our youth population uh, has lot of potentials, as Shiva rightly pointed out. So we could do wonders in the global arena in handling things like this. So we wish you the best luck to overcome all these challenges and better prepared and come up with unique solutions to handle all those crises.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandhyan. We'll just go through the questions that audience have posted it. How about convincing the family members to allow volunteers? Yes, already I asked that question to you. You have answered. As your work requires teamwork, how did you manage motivating your team in the difficult situation when people are even scared to step out of home in the fear of contracting the disease? Yeah,
So
of course.
I have
Yes.
pretty much answered to that question actually. Like as I said,
Mm-hmm.
checking with them regularly and supporting the personal and familial support for the volunteers, and offering a mental health support by organizing happy hours, and so and like supporting them with their own financial needs, and then not cutting off their uh, like if it is a staff members, not cutting off their salaries for any reasons, and if it is volunteers, giving them a more provision for internet and other facilities so that they keep connected and actively engaged in the society, and keep ensuring the social solidarity to with one another helps them to keep stable. That's what like we've been doing, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sure. There is one another question to you. Do you think the COVID-19 will bring a big change in job scenario?
Of
It's a
course.
challenge. Yeah.
Of course, there will be like a definitely the irrespective of the sector you are in, there will be a changes in a positive aspects as well as the changes in the negative aspects. So if you say the positive, there'll be like a lot more new job opportunities will be available for the young people, and the companies now, like companies or organization, would like to have a the young talents and the new talents, because they've been paying a lot and lot for the like experienced talents. So that's like a quite a lot. Instead of paying experienced talent, they can like maybe they can afford to pay five young new talents, so that it increases the productivity and then comes with a lot more innovation. So there is a lot of opportunity for young people to like maybe get into the job market in a positive way, where you can, and on the negative side, if the people are not updated with the new technologies, not updated uh, with the required skills and knowledge for the present scenario, there will be like a negative side of that. There will be a job loss. There will be a like maybe lack of promotions, or like even entering into the access to the job market will be a challenge. So I think that's the downside of it. And I'm seeing there'll be like a lot of challenges if you are in the tech side, uh, and we are going to use AI, ML, and and also like automation. It's going to happen a lot, and a lot of like uh, industries are going to follow maybe like a physical distancing, so that they reduce the staff size of it. So it's all going to be happen. So if you are like if you are a talent, you need to have a confidence that if I'm not going to get, if somebody's not going to hire me, it's not like a loss to me, it should be a loss to the employer. If you are like have that confidence and have that skills and knowledge to unlock the job market, you will get there.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiva. One more question to add on to your profession, there is that is roles and responsibility of social worker. What is the scope of a social worker? Not after COVID, as we already referred, after lockdown.
So as a professional social worker, and I feel that like now the UN Secretary General and WHO chief and other the global leaders are focusing on mental health. Everybody's saying that yes, we need to learn to live with this pandemic, or we need to learn live with this COVID-19. So there'll be a lot of mental health challenges. The psychosocial support is required a lot more. When the schools are going to reopen and the communities are have access, and the companies are going to happen irrespective of the sector, the first few weeks need to be focused on psychosocial care and support to the communities, and the social workers can deliver that much efficiently. Then then maybe other professionals like and or along with the other professionals. So I think social work will have a like higher scope. And as I said, social workers are not exceptional in terms of like updating their knowledge and remodeling our existing theories and practices with new normal, and coming out with more therapeutic approaches which applicable to our cultural context, coming out with more indigenous practices and indigenous healing practices. And those elements will help the social workers to be a forefront in the addressing the post-lockdown situation with the mental health and the social work support system. This is on the mental health side, as well as on the community development side, our industrial social work side, our family and child welfare. Each sector also has a very wider scope. When companies are undergoing the job loss, how we can treat them, make sure that like they're having like enough welfare measures for the all their employees. If it is a hospital settings, how we are going to support their patients and their like families and caregivers. And if it is a community setups, like how we are going to bring the much more evidence driven community development approaches to make sure that the dignity, respect and justice ensured to the community members. And if it is like a family and child welfare, youth development, similarly like our scope is much more wider as a professional social workers to expand our professional services to the most neediest population.
Thank you, Shiva. Now I would put the question to Santhian sir. Sir, as we all know, this disease does not differentiate between rich and poor. If it has been a disease spreading only to the poorer sections or minor sections of society,
Yeah,
would the response from government have been same? Uh, it's a
that's
diplomatic question.
that's a diplomatic question, and probably most of us would know the answer for it. Like how the testing has been done, which area they concentrated first, by which we all know like how we have addressed this issue across classes. So first we started like how NRI is being treated and how migrants are being treated. So we could see this class differentiation on how the government and the authorities have treated what the disparities that we have felt. So by clear, if it's just a poor man's disease, we would have had different treatment for sure. We would have delayed our responses. We would have taken much more time to understand the situation and respond to it. So this is something quite well known to all of us.
Yeah, sir, one more question to add on. There was an incident when the person who volunteered was tested positive, and won't this bring guilt on the volunteer whether they would have passed it on? Sandeep
So
sir, I
yes,
wanted you to respond
yeah.
because more you are going more with the people. That's why.
Yes.
That is the reason I'm putting this
So
question to
as
you because
volunteers, the volunteer must be briefed enough or trained enough to take care of their emotional resilience when it comes to handling, when it comes to responding to help their need, and especially a crisis like this. Because we might see someone who is suffering much, but without taking care of our own safety and putting their safety at stake, we shouldn't be responding in such ways. So, us regulations, us instructions being clearly cleaned out, like this is something that the virus could contact whenever we are stepping out. The volunteers must be sensitized enough to make wiser decisions and right decisions to do something. So rather being guilt of the incident after happening to it, and but being more precautionary and proactive in terms of taking all the proactive measures in play in first place, this would have been avoided. But that particular one incident have shocked every other volunteers who were working on the ground. Like everyone went up the next day to check their to go for testing, and they were doing it to ensure that they are not being a carrier to spread the disease to others. So that's the learning that we got to learn from that one particular incident. But generally, an organization, a social worker, or else a volunteer should be sensitive enough to handle situations like this. The organization must invest their time to train the volunteers on how to emotionally being resilient in times like this.
yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And in
Is
add-on to
there
that, like one
any
of the
more?
they
Yes,
don't
yes.
need to feel guilty for doing a volunteering services or spreading, because it's like a similar like how the healthcare professionals are doing at the hospital, and the how the other the cops are doing on the road, or like any other like a safety and security measures they are taking care of it, how the emergency support system, like the people working on the front line, volunteers also the frontline people. And of course they have to maintain the self-care as well as like the self hygiene and self quarantine and all the government rules and regulations. But they don't need to feel guilty, they can feel better and proud being part of the services which they can render, and helping the people to trace the contact whoever they have approached, so that like we can prevent and predict the other possible people who they might have spreaded, and we can trace those people and treat them and rescue them from that COVID infection. That's what something which we need to do other than feeling guilty.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, thank you, Shiva, and thank you, Sandhya, and thanks a lot. I hope this was a great, interesting session. We have got a lot of insights with respect to what NGOs are doing, because there are a lot of information around through media and through different kind of informations from different sources about NGOs performing different work, and still there are a lot of criticism, comments. So that's the reason which made us to have such a discussion to bring in as I referred in the beginning. You're all really unassuming heroes who are performing really for the mankind. I could see a kind of a blend of blending of youth engagement, technology with the NGO servers, along with the kind of a community engagement, along with the government measures. Together, we can actually overcome the situation. As Shiva rightly pointed out, it is not overcoming; it is like coming. Living along with the COVID. That is what, as our WHO has pointed out now. Yes, we have to learn, and I hope this is a kind of a race. And along with all your support in this race, we can actually come over the COVID also. This race that human actually can win this race. And as in India, we are known for our social solidarity. And what we have to have is the great confidence that really can help us in this time, and to trust with the community men. I have a great trust with the people who are with you, and especially people who are supporting you. And that trust and the confidence, along with all your efficient work, can really make us to come over this pandemic situation. Need not be a pandemic situation. Yes, with COVID, we can really have a successful kind of a good life. That is what I would actually wanted to give as an end note. Yes, Shiva, you want to add
And
something?
yeah, and I just want to say thank you for organizing this panel and giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts and work. And this is something that's very important to extend our social solidarity to one another, and also equip the young people to get ready for the new normal, and engage them very actively in this phase of COVID-19. And and all the very best for all the students, and thank you once again for the opportunity. If anyone would like to connect and stay in touch and have shared that overcome COVID, you can register as a volunteer. And somebody asked about the strategic plan. You can also post your request how your NGO can build a strategic plan. We are also extending our support to the peer organizations who need the strategic support, who need some of the opportunities and fundraising opportunities and other supports, which we can extend our support on that, like sharing informations. It's something is very important at this stage for the critical organizations. Support one another is also very important. And thank you once again for all these opportunities.
Yes, thank you, Shiva. Yes, sir. Sandhyan, sir, you want to add a word?
Yeah. So thank you so much for the session now. So it's always been pleasure to enlighten and to get enlightened by the sessions that you always provide. And it was great to hear from Shiva. I have learned a lot today from his strategies and his work, all of which. So we hope the best to come for your students with all the knowledge and with the experience that we have shared with them. So we are hoping to continue our services with your students, with your institutions. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you both for both of you. Really, thanks for generously accepting my invitation in your real busy schedule. Others are not busy now, but having an NGO in your hand and working for the needy with your busy schedule. Thanks for accepting my invitation, and really, you have made us to understand. That what is right now required in this scenario. And as I referred, along with the financial capital, economic capital, we need to have a eye on our social capital. This is the message I'm putting as an end note to our students and to the participants, that build your social capital, build the social solidarity, stay together, stay positive. Thank you. Thank you one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.